Hey, welcome back. My name is Loyd,
And I'm Lexi.
and you are here with us again for another Tech Talk. This time we are not live due to the holiday coming up here, so it is Thursday right now, right? We're coming to you from
Yeah.
the past, I guess is what it would be. And we're going to talk to you again in the future. So Friday, Good Friday, we're all off, and we are recording now so we can get that out to you. Um, Lexi, what has your week been like? Go ahead and you give us the laydown,
Um,
and then I'll tell you what mine's been like. But I assume crazy. I assume crazy.
yeah, per the usual, it's been a little bit hectic. I've finally kind of gotten my feet solid with all the virtual programs that we've been having to do. I think I have. Anyways. So, I mean, there's that. So, uh, I guess the next question is how long will this go on for?
Yes, yeah. That's the one. We
What
keep
about
hearing
you?
dates, but I'm not certain. Me, so let's see. We've been 3D printing. There was a news article that just went out about Harris County in general, and they talked about
Oh,
it was ABC 13, I think. They talked about the face mask printing. So I've been printing face masks here, and as I hit
it's
the
helping
maximum,
save the world, guys.
I hope so. I certainly hope so. But as we hit a specific amount for donation, I have to file all these down. So I have to get rid of any burrs. I have to quarantine them for a certain amount of time. And then I can donate them in batches of 25. So I'm trying to get to that number, and then I'll get them all prepped, bagged,
So,
quarantined.
how long does it take you to print one of those?
For this, whenever I did the slice, it was averaging about 2.5 hours, which is really, I think it's really long, but I also think I might have upped my wall count more than I needed to. But they've come out fine, so I like what it's coming out as. It's not too thick, but it's also it feels sturdy enough. Um, and
Yeah,
so
you don't want to give them anything too flimsy, so.
exactly. So I feel like it's a bit of a trade off, but it still comes out okay. And it's just something that's happening in the background. So in another room of the house on that side, uh, I have the machines running there. So I've got a stack of them, and whenever I get done, I will donate them, and then TXRX can distribute them. I think it's Memorial Herman.
Yeah, Memorial Herman, I think is what ABC said.
Yeah. So, and I'll just have to find a donation box near me, but I don't think that's going to be an issue. There's a few other branches that are nearby that are doing it as well. So, and I'm not far from any of those either. I'm like in a middle point between our branch and Barbara Bush and Northwest, so I can hit any of those. Um, but other than that, I have started a new series of videos with some of the other members of staff. We're going to be trying something called Baking is Making. And so we're going to be bringing food elements into the making atmosphere here. So one of the things that, and this is sort of a topic that we have here as well is, when you think of a makerspace or an innovation lab, what is your thought? Like what is inside that space for you?
Obviously, the first thing that comes to mind, like 3D printing, VR, like all the heavy technologies, really.
hmm And that's one of the things that we're finding as well is like most people when they think about this like oh innovation, oh making it either is a heavy craft that requires one of those machines or it's a learning experience, right? So a learning experience with maybe creating something. So yeah, the the things that a lot of people think of as very technology based, and but with STEM, STEAM, STREAM, you find that also there's the science aspect, right? So you have the science
Mm.
portion. Cooking includes a lot of science. We don't often think about it. Usually it's like I add heat, make this edible, and call it a day, or pour water into mac and cheese, stir, cool, right? Like that's an easy recipe or something that someone could do there. But the idea is to maybe look at it in terms of like, okay, what sort of reactions are going on with this cooking, and maybe even bring some history into it as well. It depends on who's going to be doing the episode that you're watching. So
Yeah.
Kyla is a very heavy genealogy person, and so she has a lot of background in looking into family trees and stuff like that. And one of the things that's passed down is recipes, right? You have old family recipes that are brought in, so that could be something there. But I've been filming a lot of cooking now, so I made chicken stock from scratch. I made a shakshuka recipe yesterday. just simple things. And right now I, I have a sourdough loaf or rising essentially in my kitchen waiting. So after we're done here, I'm probably gonna go throw that in the oven and see what I can get from it. Um,
Ooh, yummy.
but yeah, that's been done with like the fermentation of uh, just flour and water in my kitchen for the last 5 days. So I've been trying to get the starter going, and I just wanted to try out with some of the excess to see, where the fermentation was at. Is it cultured enough? Is it alive enough? It probably needs to go a few more days. I need to make sure it keeps running. So I'll try again after I get the starter fully done. But yeah, one of the things that I've been doing is just been cooking and turning that into content. And then we just had a post go up today, actually, yesterday, I guess if you're watching this on Friday. It was the Excel at Excel series, and it's me and Susan's husband, Patrick, talking about Excel and different functions within it and just how you can utilize those. It's a little bit of practical application with us showing, like, oh, here's how this function works, or here's how this function works. It's just fun little things.
See that, guys? We're dragging people who aren't librarians down into this too now.
Family members are getting
You
drug
could
in
be
as
next.
well. Yeah, be careful. No, actually, anyone who would like to join in on any conversations, there's plenty of live chats. There's plenty of book talks. There's plenty of interesting topics that are being talked about all the time, either through our Facebook or through one of the other live stream services like WebEx or something like that. Nick, Rachel,
Yeah, they're
Karen,
doing a bunch of live stuff.
they're doing all, yeah. So Kyla as well. They're all doing live sessions. So if you'd like to join in and have conversations about the topics, follow our Facebook, check our Instagram. You'll see when that stuff is going on. We usually post, what's going on during the week, and you can join us during those times. If not, you can catch the VODs later, just like they always have. VOD, I guess we should say that too. A VOD, video on demand VOD, is usually a
I
recorded
was gonna
stream.
say, I don't think everybody knows what that stands for.
So yeah, the recorded stream afterwards, instead of catching it live, you can catch it later. But yeah, that's sort of been my week. It's been printing, cooking, creating, and editing videos. Other than that, going with the cooking thing, a lot of times, at least for me, some of the best content that I usually see comes from Alton Brown, actually. Have you ever seen Alton Brown?
I can't say I have actually.
No? Okay, so Alton Brown did Good Eats. And Good Eats is a Food Network show. And it brought a little bit of technology and science, as well as history, into the things that they were talking about during the day. So, it's older.
Didn't well, I was about to say, didn't Bill Nye do something with cooking and science? Oh, yeah, he did a little thing on PBS, Cooking with Bill Nye.
Okay, that's something I
Yeah.
did not know. So but yeah, so Alton Brown had this show called Good Eats, and he'd bring in a bunch of interesting topics. Like, so he'd have a recipe that he was working with, and he'd talk about a little bit of the history, some of the science that went into it. So, like, also other ways that you could do this beyond the traditional methods and things like that. So he was a really interesting sort of innovator in food television. It wasn't as boring. It wasn't just, and that's not to knock on, like, Ina Garden or all those other people. I'm sure I enjoyed watching their stuff at some point as well, but like Alton Brown just was sort of like, oh, this is
It
cool. This is
resonated
fun.
with you the most.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
that sort of went further into just me learning how to cook, because I didn't have any training. My family didn't teach me how to cook. I picked up things here and there, but like when I left, my parents' house, I was on my own, and I was burning spaghetti noodles and
Oh, you mean what I do on a daily basis?
I don't know. Well, okay, so like maybe the first time I didn't know how much water to put in, and I just guessed and I threw in too many noodles. I learned, but yeah, I've had plenty of mishaps in the cooking that I've done. I remember the first Thanksgiving meal I did green bean casserole, and it was with fresh green beans, like the French green beans that you can get at the grocery store. And I had no idea how to prepare them, so I just left them as is and boiled them. So like they had the ends still on them. They weren't cut. They were super long. And I just remember the people that I cooked for like slowly snipping off the ends with their fork and knife and cutting it. And I was going, Yeah. Sorry. First
You're
time.
like, oh, that's what I should have done.
Yeah. So you pick up things, and at least they were also truthful about it. They were like, yeah, usually you want to do this to it. They weren't like, oh yeah, no, it's great, and just smiling while slowly chewing
Smile
their
or
food.
not,
Yeah, no,
smile or not.
be harsh. Tell people that's how they learn. But
Yeah.
my turkeys
But
always came out good, so that was cool. But yeah, it's a lot of just like going into this and learning how to do things, and that's like your innovation, or it's part of the innovation experience as well because now you've seen something and you might want to change it to your liking. That's changing up the cooking variety, the recipe itself. Maybe you want to use something else, use a different texture, another flavor profile, something like that. Take something and convert it from a South American style dish into an Eastern dish. And that's something that's been happening throughout the world all over. You have people that
oh
move
yeah.
in, bring a recipe, and then the culture that they adopt changes that recipe, and it
Well, I
fits.
mean, look at the majority of recipes in America. That's pretty much what's happened to them over time,
Exactly.
you
So,
know?
so like that innovation is something that you still want to see today. And you know, these high profile chefs that are doing like three Michelin star restaurant style food, they'll use interesting science techniques as well. Things like diffusers, things to
Wow.
extract. Yeah, like they'll take they'll take something and they'll extract flavor from it using a centrifuge, but leaving it with a colorless sort of appearance so that you can put it into other things. Another person who did this a lot was, oh, God, hold on. I gotta find his name now. Heston Blumenthal uses a lot of different uh, pieces of equipment within science, either to freeze dry something or to change the flavor profile. Or he's done some crazy stuff. One of the biggest things. It's a weird sort of like it looks like the sea, and it's supposed to be an experience. And so he's got like edible sand.
I'll take a hard pass on that.
Let me see if I can.
That's that's like the reverse training of what you get as a child.
Right?
I think that's counterproductive.
It's so weird. Okay, hold on. I think I found a picture and I'll throw it up here. The problem is I'm going through Pinterest and I hate Pinterest because they're horrible. Okay, so let me switch.
Things everywhere.
So the edible sand here is like a mixture of different things, and he's got a sort of a sea foam which has flavors in it. But basically, this is all edible, and it seems like you're eating pieces of, uh, you know, dirt. It looks like that, but once you put it in your mouth, you have this crazy flavor that hits you, and you're like, oh wow, that's a lot different.
You seem like you're talking from personal experience.
No, 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 not personal experience.
Okay.
Secondhand. I've watched a lot of his shows. I've watched a lot of Netflix and stuff where he's on there, as well as BBC Four TV, where his stuff is on there.
Not gonna lie, this kind of looks like the Kraken coming out of the sea with these little tentacles back here and
I can believe that, but the idea is like, okay, you have these things that mimic,
yeah.
real life sort of stuff. It looks like sand, it feels like sand, but the flavor is not. It's something that you actually want to eat, something to
Yeah.
enjoy. And he uses a lot of different techniques to sort of bring in like taking your mind to somewhere else. There's a few different. He had a podcast as well. There's a few different things that he had running where it was like how you can bring out and heighten your senses in order to get different flavor profiles from different things. And it was a very scientific sort of method. He did a lot of research. A big part was like creating airline food that had some flavor because one of the biggest complaints about
Oh
airline,
my goodness, that would be a blessing.
right?
Gross.
So he tried his hardest to make it better, and he had to work with, okay, you're working in a pressurized cabin, your sinuses are going to be like more compact, you're not going to be able to pull in a lot of the smells, and so what you have to deal with mostly is like flavors on the tongue and try and bring those smells through. It's an interesting thing because like it's just not the same feeling. Like you could cook it the same at ground level and it'd be amazing, but whenever you go
Yeah,
up there, it just because of the difference in temperature and stuff like that,
and
or
altitude.
altitude and pressure, like it changes things.
Yeah. It's
So,
funny how like your sense of smell can affect what you taste.
yeah,
So like if you can't smell anything, you typically can't taste anything that you're eating.
which is one of the big problems there. Like it's just you can't smell it as much up, in a pressurized environment like that. One of the other things was the I think he helped design meals for the ISS as well. So that was another challenge of his, was creating meals that could transport easily and still have some flavor. Um, it's a really weird thing to see, but I'll try and link those YouTube videos with this if I can. It'll probably
Might
just be trailers. Yeah,
Yeah, I was about to say they might have like full stints on YouTube.
yeah, like little cut pieces and stuff. So I'll see what I can do with that. But essentially, it's like, okay, exploring food as a science is very interesting, and even just bread, yeast. How did we get it to rise? How do we learn that? And it's like a lot of times it's just through accident. But then
Yeah,
understanding
I
it,
think beer was a complete accident in all honesty,
yeah.
if I
There's
remember correctly.
there's been like so many creations in our life that we use and take for granted, or just we use on a day to day basis, and it's just been like, how did that come about? And it's just accident, eureka moment, that sort of thing.
I think cooking gets overlooked a lot, especially since a lot of districts have kind of taken away that home ec,
Mm,
you know?
yeah,
So like now even more so are your children less likely to know the importance of cooking.
but that's stuff that's been happening for thousands of years. Is people cooking in that way is just finding out, oh, I like these flavors together. Let's throw this in, or let's try something new. But yeah,
Yeah, kind of like how you were talking about with the stock
mm-hmm.
that you made.
Yeah, it's just different things thrown in there. Usually, it's going to be a vegetable. One of the things I started to realize was that the onions that I use, which are usually yellow onions, I use the skin on as part of that as well. So like I'll take scraps and I'll just save them, and I'm going to save that yellow onion skin because it's still onion, provide the flavor. The thing is though, like that also will leach color from that onion skin, and so my stocks have been coming out really dark, and I'm like, what the heck's going on? It's just chicken. But no, it's more than just the chicken. It's the
It's
vegetables
because
I'm
of the
throwing
onion.
in. Yeah.
Yeah, it's how it reacts to
Hmm.
different, I
So
guess,
lots of different things being pulled
properties.
out. Yeah, it's pigmentation being pulled out through breaking down of cells with that slow cooking process, that stewing method essentially.
Does your stock taste any different because of it?
Mm, no, it tastes just fine. The only thing is it's darker, so
Hmm.
it's interesting. Uh, you can also, you know, do things to alleviate that by just using white onion. That's all you gotta do. Or peel your vegetables a little bit more. Like a lot of people will take fresh vegetables like carrots and stuff, peel them off, chop them.
We started an herb garden
Ooh,
yesterday.
very
I'm
cool.
super proud of us. Yeah, I know, sorry, that's a little bit off topic,
No,
but
it's food and it's still science related because you're growing. So that's great. What are you
yeah.
growing?
We got a whole bunch of herbs, and then I picked out strawberries, cucumbers, and bell pepper plant.
Oh, very nice. Yeah.
And then for herbs, we got, of course, rosemary, dill, lemon balm, sage, two types of sage, parsley, cilantro, um, and a
Everything that
couple
you
of,
could need, right?
yeah, we also got chives and a couple of other things
Very
too.
cool.
So,
See, one of the things that I want to try and do is do something similar, but I need time, and right now just mowing the lawn is like enough for me. So like
right.
maintaining a garden, I'm like, oh man, that's gonna cut down on.
Well, what we actually did was we just basically just bought like a whole bunch of, not two by fours, but like boards from Home Depot,
Hmm.
and then just like plopped it on top of a section of our yard.
Yeah, raised bed sort of gardening there, essentially.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
So, I mean, it's turned out pretty good so far, but it's only been a day and a half.
Nothing's died in a day. We're doing good.
Exactly.
Well, as time goes on, let us know how it goes, because that's one of the things that a lot of people can do now while they're indoors and they got that time, is to those things that would take more time intensive, like gardening isn't super crazy. You just water it and
Yeah.
let it grow, but there's also the
Well, that's the
maintaining.
thing, though, is like starting the garden is the most time intensive part of it because
Mm.
it took us the better half of last night to actually put everything together and get it all put together and planted. So, I mean, that's the majority of it. The rest of it's just like 5 minute upkeep every day.
Yeah.
That's it. And then it's like you can use things like the lemon balm we're gonna get from the harvest, and then uh, our sage that's gonna be used for a variety of different things other than just cooking. Like you can make candles
Hmm.
out of the herbs, like if you dry them,
Yeah.
hang dry them, and things like that. You can make sage scented candles or lemon balm scented candles. So, I mean,
Yeah, you can also try and go the
or that.
soap route as well, I guess. A lot of
Yeah.
aromatics that you can pull and do different things with.
I was gonna say soap's a little bit harder.
Yeah.
So if you want to do candles, it's a lot easier, especially if you have kids. You just take all those broken up crowns that that your kids have and you melt them down and you melt it in with basically your herbs and things like that and a little bit of scented oil and you have your candle.
And then start dipping your wicks in, I guess. I'm not a
Yeah,
candle
you
maker, so.
usually put the wick in first, so it sits on the bottom. And then you have like a cup or something that you're using to kind of make the candle shape. And then you melt down the whatever wax substance you're using and you pour it in. And with my herb candles, I like to do layers. You can mix it all in too, so that way you kind of, especially if you're using like white wax or something,
Mm,
then it kind of comes through on the outside and it makes like this little abstract garden design on it.
cool.
Yeah.
Okay, you'll have to show us whenever you get your
Yes.
yeah, whenever you get your first thing in.
Sorry.
I'm sure. Let's see, how long would it take? Maybe a month, maybe more, for your
A little
crop.
bit.
Okay.
Yeah. We want them to settle, so we're probably not going to be harvesting them anytime soon, since we did just plant them. So we want to give them time to. We don't want to give them system shock, basically.
Gotcha. Well,
So
once you get your first harvest, let's do it. That'd be a cool thing that we could show people.
I'll bring you fresh herbs to cook with after all.
Oh, that's one of the things I hate too. Is like one of the reasons I should do an herb garden is because usually I'll be sitting there going, okay, I have these dried herbs, but I want a fresh herb, uh, and I have to go to the store and get one, and then only use part of it. Whereas if I was just growing, I'd snip off what I need, you know.
Yep,
So
it's easier.
it's one of the things I should do. I need to do the same thing I'd do a raised bed, and I don't want to spend the time right now. I'm just
Mm,
lazy.
raised beds are always easier too because, like, if God forbid, but like if you ever have to transport them or something,
Hmm.
and especially if it's segmented away from your ground, like ours has a little bit of a layer underneath to where it's basically just a little tapestry pretty
Hmm.
much underneath of it. So like if we ever have to move it, we can if we need to.
Right. Yeah.
But
No, those are really good ones, and I was during this whole thing, I've been like looking at little things I can do around my house. Like, oh, okay, that's a cool
you
little
should do
project.
it and do a video on it.
I'll
Tech
try
for
to.
your garden.
Let me see how many other videos I have to edit or work with, and I'll see. But yeah,
God.
garden tech. Let's also talk about the thing that you were working on just recently, because you just did something in regard to astronomy, right?
Oh, yeah. So I've been doing these, if you guys don't know already, I've been doing the Stellar Saturdays every week. And the one we have coming up this week is actually talking about the constellation links. And basically, what I do is I go through and I talk about the constellation itself, how many stars are in it. But then also, what a lot of people don't realize is when you're looking at a constellation, you're also looking at like galaxies and star clusters and a
Yeah.
whole bunch of other different things that are inside of that constellation. It's basically kind of like a living host. It's really amazing.
Mm-hmm.
um, but we take a look at what pretty much it's comprised of. And with some of the larger ones, I only touch on like the really big important ones or what they're most known for, because if they have a lot, it'll take me forever to go through them all.
Hmm. Hmm.
But yeah, I mean, we take a look at the constellation, then we take a look at how Hubble Images has kind of taken pictures of certain ones and what it, some of them are actually old photos too, which is interesting. I believe in our Corvus video, we actually have a black and white version, like one of our, like, it's like a
Wow.
really like one of the first images taken of Corvus versus like a more modern day Corvus image.
Very
So
cool.
it's really cool comparison with some of them, and then after that I kind of go into like the mythos behind the constellation, like
Yeah.
where did the mythos originate? Like some of them with the phoenix, it's just there's mythology all across the world and they're all similar, and they're like, even though it's a southern hemisphere origin story, I mean, there's still like Celtic references to a firebird
Yeah.
and things like that, where it's just kind of unexplained and like really neat.
Different
But
things cropping up in cultures all across the world. Just
yeah,
it
it's
happens.
pretty, and then there's some of them where it's just very culture specific, or like the one I'm going to be talking about this week, it's like some of the more modern ones that have been named, or the ones that were named later on in time that were pretty much like well after Mythos had been established, done, and
Hmm.
dead type of thing. So then they were named, and then mythology was kind of associated with them, if that makes sense. So it
Yeah.
was vice versa. Like back in time, it was, oh, it's this constellation because of this, like, this is the story behind it. Whereas as time goes on, it's become more of, oh, it's this constellation because I've named it.
Hmm.
And then people reference it or kind of correlate it to, like, oh, yeah, then there's also this mythology.
Right. It's a weird take on how it used to be. The one of the things that I always think about though is because you'd mentioned like, oh, you don't really think about all the time when you're looking at a constellation is like that little speck could be an entire galaxy. And
Hmm.
it's what if someone was looking from a planet in one of those galaxies? What
Back
constellation
at
would
you.
we? Yeah, what would our constellation? Where would we lie in their constellations? It's always
Where
something.
would we be?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it's always space and stars has always kind of like kept my interest, because there's a philosophy that one man has always said. He's a physicist, and I remember him saying it because I was in college at the time and I was attending his lecture, and he said, if to think about all the billions of universes, all the billions and trillions of galaxies out there, it would be an awfully lonely world if we were the only ones.
Yes. Yeah. And
So,
it really is just absolutely mind-boggling sometimes when you think about the number of different possible planets that could hold life out there. Like we have the project that's going on currently to find things within that livable band. Uh,
well, we have found several, I think, within the past 10 years.
yeah,
Like, we found two or three planets alone that could possibly hold hospitable life,
right.
like, or similar atmospheres for Earth,
Hmm.
but you can only get so much information from how close we can get.
Yeah, essentially, yeah, we'd have to start sending things out that way to try and probe or make a trip ourselves, which ain't happening right now.
We'll know 270 billion light years from now.
I mean, just start creating wormholes. That's all you
Oh,
gotta do.
actually, what's funny is one of the, I think it was Corvus again. So Corvus, there's a area in Corvus in which, is it Corvus or the Phoenix constellation? I can't remember. But there's basically one of the areas in these constellations where basically new black holes are being formed
Oh,
from like all of these stars basically colliding.
very cool. Also a
Yeah.
little scary.
It is. It really was. I mean, like it's way far away from us, but it's something that's like, oh, like
Hmm.
that's a little bit
Yeah.
sketch, but
One of the things that really stuck with me about like black holes in general. So this is tying into a video game, but I've I've played a lot of Elite Dangerous, and Elite Dangerous is a video game where they scale in a one-to-one model the universe, right?
ooh, okay.
Okay, so even though there's faster than light travel, the amount of time it took, because what I did was there's a specific spot. It's sort of a pilgrimage at the center of the galaxy. It's called Sagittarius A, and it is a system in which there is a large, massive black hole at the center of the galaxy, and it's become a pilgrimage for a lot of players to travel there. I remember the travel time took me about a week of real time as I it was a week of me playing, 4 hours a day or something like that. So it could probably be a lot quicker.
Wow.
Yes. Sagittarius A is this crazy pilgrimage that people would take, but it made me realize exactly like, and that's with less time, or less time than it would take to actually fly there with current technology. But it was like, okay, I'm spending this many hours in real world time to travel between systems to get to this part of the galaxy. Absolutely crazy what it would do
Yeah.
in real, and it's just like, and that was just me going to the center. It's been one of the most interesting like procedural generations of a galaxy at one-to-one scale that I've ever seen, and it
That's
really just
interesting.
like it put into perspective.
Yeah.
It's big. It's big.
It's very big.
It's very big. Yeah.
Um, yeah, okay, so I'm gonna correct myself on what I said earlier. So it is in the Phoenix cluster,
Okay.
and it's not that it's producing several black holes. Um, there is a supermassive black hole at the core of the system that is growing very rapidly and expanding at the approximate rate of 60 solar masses per year.
Ooh.
Currently, it is 20 billion times the mass of the sun.
That's
Yeah,
crazy.
it's huge,
I only
but
imagine
yeah,
what's going on at the core there too. Like,
right? But I find it ironic that before even all this technology and everything, we decided to name this Phoenix constellation. And within that Phoenix constellation, not only do you have several stars being born, but you also have several stars dying.
yes. Yeah.
Like, that's the whole Phoenix tale.
Mm-hmm.
And before we even knew any of this, we somehow came up with a mythos to reflect it. I don't know. It's
It's pretty crazy. Yeah. That's amazing stuff. I always one of the most interesting things I always find with like Hubble images is nebulas.
hmm
So like seeing those birthing fields of stars, like all the solar dust and gases and stuff that can coalesce and create those masses that then.
And yeah, in the Corvus constellation, there's one that's in there. It's actually two galaxies that are pretty much on a collision course.
Mhm.
And because they're on that collision course, but they're also like birthing so many different stars at the same time, there's like this tail of gas that comes out and around and it kind of loops off. And it's called the antenna galaxy.
Oh.
Because apparently, to the guy who found it, the spiral tail looked like an antenna. So, you see how people get super creative, right?
Uh-huh. Yeah, no. I definitely, yeah. I would probably do something similar though. That's the pointy stick cluster. That's what that one is. It looks like a pointed stick. A spear? No, no, no. Pointed stick. Different.
It's a very different. It's a distinct difference.
That one's the banana cluster because I'm hungry. You know.
I'm hungry today and it's yellow.
Exactly. That'd be my naming conventions as well. Thanks for joining us again today for another Tech Talk. We're gonna try and hit you again next week with another episode, maybe live.
Hope to see you there.
Yeah. I'm Loyd.
And I'm Lexi.
Have a good one, guys. See you.